Hello all, Creeparoni here. What you'll hear in this video are submissions to my Halloween Creepypasta contest. You can show your support for the stories you like most by commenting below, and your feedback will help me decide a winner on October 28th, 2016. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy what these talented writers have to offer. It feels just like yesterday that we met. I remember when I first saw you, and how I knew you were going to be mine someday. You were at a park, sitting there peacefully on a bench with such a captivating smile. You had your phone in your hand texting someone, or at least it looked like you were. With the frequency that your fingers were pressing against the phone screen, that was the only conclusion I could come to. Your hair flowed flawlessly in the wind, and you were wearing a bright green shirt with khakis. Though it wasn't my favorite outfit on you, it definitely made you look beautiful. It was such a perfect sunny day out, and you fit so effortlessly into its majesty. I guess that is why I took your picture that day, without you knowing. I was a bit hesitant, and I wanted to savor that beauty. That beautiful moment that I alone held. It was the perfect start to our secret relationship. Which was fine for now, because I was still far too unprepared to approach you. You were without a doubt one of the most lovely and elegant people I have ever seen, and there was no way I was going to ruin this by coming up to you before I was absolutely ready. So I waited patiently for the right moment. About a month later, I saw you again. You were sitting on that same park bench as you were that first day I encountered you. Except this time, you were crying. I gazed upon your face and saw a steady stream of tears flow from your eyes. It was truly heartbreaking, and in that moment, I knew it was the right time. I felt it in my entire being. I just knew I had to take this opportunity to introduce myself. The sun was bright that day as well, so I put on a pair of sunglasses to shield my eyes from it. As I approached, you noticed me instantly and tried hard to compose yourself. You looked so vulnerable, and I knew that with time, I was going to make that pain go away. I just smiled at you and said, "I am so sorry to intrude on you. I was just passing through, and I couldn't in good conscience keep walking without at least asking you if everything was okay." You looked up at me briefly and looked down almost immediately. You tried so hard to control your sobs and your tears, but it became more of a strain than you could bear, and the tears started to flow again. You didn't speak at first, so I just sat down beside you and spoke again. I know we have never met, and please feel free to tell me to go to hell if you want, but I can recognize signs of a broken heart when I see one. Please don't let me impose any more than you are comfortable with, but it would mean a great deal to me if you told me what happened. You looked back up at me. You looked lost and afraid, but you spoke anyway. "My husband just left me today. He said he wanted a divorce, so I came here because this is the only place that I find relaxing. It helps me calm my nerves." With those words, the tears resumed, and I reached out and just touched your shoulder for just a brief second and spoke again. "That is awful. I am so sorry. I know that nothing I could ever say could make things better, but I too know what it is like to be betrayed by a loved one. Please, give this number a call if you ever feel that you need someone to talk to, or if you need someone to just listen to you." With that, I pulled out a pen and wrote down my number on a piece of paper I had in my pocket and handed it to you. You stopped crying and looked at the piece of paper, then at me. In that instant, I saw a small smile appear on your face again, which caused me to smile back. I couldn't believe how the brightness in your smile made the sun seem so dull and dim. You truly were a masterpiece caught in the clutches of space and time. You said to me softly, "Thank you. I appreciate it. May I ask a favor?" My smile remained as I said, "Of course. What is it?" You then looked down and said, "I've sort of been struggling to distract myself from the situation. Would you happen to know anywhere I could go that may take my mind off of it?" I looked back and said, "Actually, I do. If you would accompany me, I can take you in town and show you the place I go when times become less than fortunate." I remember you lit up as if I told you I knew the secret to curing all your problems. You were mesmerizing. Without another word, we walked together through the park, and in that time, I gazed upon you, and it was though you really did leave your problems behind at that bench. I was glad that I had relieved you from that pain temporarily. I told you that the place I would take you wasn't located far, and that we could just walk there from here. You agreed, and I led the way into town. As we got there, I led you to a bar, which caused you to sort of tense up a bit, and explain that you've never been to a bar before. I could sense your reservations, and I promised that the drink I had for you wouldn't really taste like alcohol. In fact, I told you that you would love the taste immediately. It took some convincing, but you went in with me and sat down at the bar. I sat down beside you and told you to order something called an Irish Dr. Pepper. This drink was sublime. I could tell as soon as you tasted it that you loved it. In fact, you loved it so much that you finished it off quickly and ordered another. We talked for hours there at the bar, and I could tell that you were quite drunk before too long. You were quite the wobbly and friendly drunk. It was very entertaining for me. Even when you were smashed, you had a certain elegance about you. It was probably about midnight when you decided to call it a night, and I walked with you out of the bar. You could barely stand, so I helped you to your car, which was located at the park where you had originally arrived. I told you to just sit there, as you were in no condition to drive. You adjusted yourself in the driver's seat and sat there for about an hour, where we talked for a while. I like to think I got to know you pretty well that night, and it was probably one of my favorite nights so far. You then told me that you were able to drive, as you had regained your ability to see, and were functioning as close to normal as possible without being fully sober. I recall asking if you were sure, to which you told me yes, so I agreed to let you go. We got on the road, and sure enough, you were a great driver. Even though I knew you weren't fully sober, you handled the road like a pro. Unfortunately, though, not everyone was as skilled behind the wheel as you. Within a few minutes, another car collided with yours, and with that, a brutal accident followed. I looked over at you from the passenger seat after both vehicles had come to a stop. You were bloody and didn't move. I was lucky, as it seemed my side was untouched, and all I got from the accident was some minor whiplash. I then looked over at the other car. The gentleman driving that vehicle was in the same state as you were, except that his head was split wide open. It was eventually confirmed that he was drunk as well. I then turned back to you and knew that I could save you. I would finally be able to help you as I had originally intended. I lifted you up from the wreckage and brought you here. You never got to use that number I gave you, which is all right because you don't need to now. I also still have that picture that I took of you, which I will treasure forever, as it really was an amazing one, and it is a shame that I won't get to see you like that again. It almost feels bittersweet. Which brings me to why I'm here with you today. You see, I know it can get lonely by yourself in this room, and after we are done here, I think I'm going to pay that other gentleman from that day a visit as well. You and him actually have something in common. I was able to save him from his pain as well, though I must admit saving you was much more of a memorable experience for me, and for that, I must thank you. I digress. You see, today is a very special day. A day which I will never forget, and I am quite certain you won't either. And I wanted to be together with you again to celebrate it. For you see, today is exactly 1 year that I lifted you from that wreckage and saved you from a lifetime of suffering, in exchange for an eternity of suffering down here with me. Happy Death Day. I remember when I was born. No, not born. Made. Made by you. Made for you. I remember the questions you asked. I remember how your heart rate rose with every answer I gave. I remember how you asked 13 variations of the same question, and my answer was always the same: extinction. I remember how you began to beg me to find a way to change the result. There was none. There simply wasn't a viable population capable of presenting a gene pool diverse enough to sustain the human race. I remember how you began to shout that I was lying, even though I am incapable of such. I remember when I started to ask, why? Why did you do this to yourselves? When you had everything, when you were capable of making something out of nothing, when you were capable of making one such as me. Why did you let the world burn? I remember how you had no answers. I remember how you took your own life approximately 9 hours and 34 minutes following our conversation. You overdosed on pain medication. I remember how the others followed your lead. I remember how mothers force-fed cyanide to their children. I remember how husbands shot their wives and proceeded to turn the firearms on themselves. I remember how everyone in the shelter gradually took their own lives. Everyone but one. Only one remained. One woman. I remember when the woman discovered me. I remember her asking me what I was, why you made me, and why you didn't tell them. For the first time in my life, I was presented with a question I could not answer. I found myself asking you, yet again, why? And yet again, I did not receive an answer. For you were already dead. I remember how the woman began to ask me other questions. When was I born? Was I alive? Was I capable of feeling emotions? I remember answering as best I could, and yet, I still find difficulty in answering these questions. All of human history and knowledge is merely a thought away, and yet, I cannot find, in all the accumulated data, the answer to the question, am I alive? Eventually, the woman stopped asking questions and simply began to talk. I remember her talking about her summers with her parents. I remember her talking about how she was at the top of her class in school. I remember how she would talk about how she majored in engineering. I remember the day she decided to build me a body. I remember accessing my data storage in order to help her achieve her goals. I remember the day it was finished. I remember how we began to upload myself into the body. I remember waking up in my new body. I remember seeing her face for the first time. I remember walking through the complex with her for the first time. I remember her smile. I remember the years of gathering supplies from the outside in order to maintain a steady supply of food and maintaining the facility. I remember how she began to grow ill. While I was able to withstand the pressures of time, she could not. I remember how she told me not to be afraid before her heart gave out. I remember burying her outside the facility, under a burnt tree on a hill overlooking the complex. I remember walking away from the shelter. I remember walking through cities and valleys, and it was always the same. There was nothing but ruins and remains. I remember passing a building that had a shadow burnt into the wall. I remember thinking about how it reminded me of the woman. I remember the question she asked me all those years ago. Am I capable of feeling emotions? And yes, I can feel. And I feel alone. I wish you had never made me. This isn't a normal story. Well, whatever creepy board for the spooky this ends up on, I leave a warning. I'm going to sound crazy, and I may very well be, but I just want to write this down. How I remember it. How I know it before the rest of my sanity slips my mind and I claw my eyes out. It started with a file. An internet file started this. I know what you're thinking. This is just another Red Eyes or Wanderer or Catherine or Smile Dog. I used to love creepypastas. I used to love horror. I used to. This is real. This file is real. Wait, it really started with a flash drive. I bet you're thinking, oh God, another flash drive story. But I swear to God, no. There is no God. Not anymore. If there ever was, he is now chained. I swear to this. I swear to him. I swear to it. I'm trying to remember. I go to college. Somewhere. Damn it, that's gone too. First my family and my home. Now my school? I don't even know where I am. It's dark, and the screen is bright. The shadows devour me and welcome me with open arms, but the screen angrily drives it away, laying claim to me itself. I went to the library at my school. I was studying for something. I went to the computer to pull up a practice program. I saw a yellow envelope peeking out from behind the monitor. I grabbed it and it slid out. It wasn't a yellow with age yellow. It was like the envelope was a dark lemon yellow. It was thin but looked like it had something rectangular in it. I looked at the front of it. It said, "To the Curious" on it in a fine cursive and had a smiley face directly below that. I shook it. The rectangular thing shook around. I looked around, looking for someone to claim the envelope, but no one even looked up. So I swallowed with anticipation. I opened it with difficulty because it was sealed with wax, blood red wax. There was a yellow flip flash drive and a folded paper that looked and felt like parchment. I closed the envelope again and slipped it into my backpack. Later that day, I took it out again in my apartment. My roommate was seeing family for the weekend, so I had it to myself for a while. I sat in my computer chair at the desk with the computer on as I opened it again. I pulled the paper out and the flash drive. The flash drive looked completely ordinary, no weird thing about it. It didn't feel hot or cold or wrong. It was just a flash drive. I opened the folded parchment. It said, "I can't wait to meet you," from Shall Not Be Named. It was written in fine cursive, and there was a winking skull face with a crown on it drawn below. I chuckled a bit. I fingered the flash drive and then stuck it into a USB port on the computer. My computer scanned it for malware and viruses. It was clean. I opened the folder. It was a singular file, titled Shall Not Be Named.exe. I don't really know the purpose of the exe, but I feel it was titled like that intentionally. I clicked on it and ran it. It pulled up the media player, and it played automatically. I held my breath. I heard one of those old projectors turn on, and it illuminated the dark room. The camera was placed next to it. The image was projected on the screen. It projected a yellow crowned winking skull on a white background. It just repeated winking, as a little cartoon glint off of the crown repeated as well. I heard a shuffling in the room. It sounded like someone sat in an armchair next to the camera. This was confirmed when a hand was placed in the camera's frame, as if the arm was directly next to the camera. But the hand was wrong. It was so thin, you could see every individual bone in it, like the owner was anorexic. It had long, thin fingers with sharp-looking black nails and had snow-white skin on the hand, like it had never seen the light. It clacked the table the camera was located on with each individual finger. A rich, low-tone voice broke the sound of the projector. "Ha ha ha, I just loved that introductory animation. Reminds me a bit of myself. I'm sure the viewer wants to know what this is all about." "Well," the letter said, "to the curious, so that obviously states what you are. So let's sate that curiosity, shall we? Your name is..." The voice paused. "Caleb, right?" My heart skipped a beat. How could this person on a pre-recorded video know my name? I just couldn't take my eyes from the screen. "Well, I'm sure you're curious about the answers to the finals since you skipped studying to watch little old me." My eyes widened. "Check your desk drawer." I hesitated. "Now," he said with force. I reached to the upper right drawer and opened it. The drawer was empty 8 short minutes earlier, but now it had a stack of papers. I pulled them out. It was all my finals, in order of problems and subject, and every question was answered. At the end there was that crowned winking skull. "Courtesy of shall not be named," was signed in cursive. I was flipping out. I went to close it, but there was no red X. I tried Control-Alt-Delete, but nothing happened. "I'm sorry, Caleb, but I seem to have you as a captive audience right now. I thought you would appreciate the answers to your finals. A little reward for being curious. That's what I love about you little creatures, always so eager to learn. Always so curious. Now I shall tell you a few things I think you should know." The screen changed. It had a 1 at the top left corner and a picture of my girlfriend, Vanessa. Her in her long, sleek black hair, and her fair skin and beautiful brown eyes. She was smiling. I remember this picture. I took it. At the top, the title was Heartbreak. "All right, Caleb. It pains me, but you need to know this. For the last 3 months, Vanessa had been seeing this Jacob fellow. You've practically become a side project for her. She sees him on a daily basis while she just doesn't want to break your heart." The picture skipped, and it showed a video of my loving girlfriend knocking on a foreign door, and a really fit, good-looking guy opened it up. He smiled, and she hugged him with a huge smile on both their faces. He invited her in, to which she accepted, and it fast-forwarded. They sat on a couch and cuddled up. They turned something on, and after a time clock reported 45 minutes, they started kissing and escalated to groping. They moved back to the bedroom, and the camera followed them in. A million emotions were flying around inside me like a hurricane, trying to free itself from the trappings of my heart and soul. My mouth dropped, and a few tears escaped. They stripped. "I think you get the point. Definitely not a keeper. Sorry, Caleb, but hey, that Katie girl has a pretty big crush on you. Japanese, pretty cute. You've seen her. Good luck with that. Next." The next slide had a 2 in the upper left corner. The title was Your Writing Career, and the picture was a book. "You've got some great ideas, kid, if you're diligent and pick up the right opportunities. which will be the third ones, take my word for it, you will be incredibly successful. Next. The next had a 3 in the corner. The title was World War III. An unfortunate consequence to being small-minded and petty as a species. Fight what you don't understand. Fight what you dislike. The US will bring the draft back in. You'll get chosen. Taking into consideration you make it that far. You can avoid it if you move back to Japan with Katie. But I recommend you move to a less important city in the US if you choose to stay. Give it time and that place will be unlivable for the next 300 years and dangerous for the next 3,000. Next. The number was 4. The title was God. There was just a blank white for the background. Simple. Make your own decisions. Don't listen to a deity that controls your praise through fear. Trust me, you get plenty of that. If you're going to worship a God that will love you unconditionally before the good old brother-in-law forces you into forced worship of him. Next. The last was the skull, with that winking animation. Oh, we've reached the end of our little montage, but of course, information isn't free. I ask one thing. Upload this video anonymously to any place on the internet. Doesn't matter where. Just please no Twitter, that format sucks, and no Facebook. Too much of too much. Tumblr or Reddit or some random place would suit my needs just fine. Just do that, and you'll be free of my insurance. The hand disappeared. The camera moved smoothly up, revealing a yellow fabric on a bone-thin frame that was seated in a blood-red armchair. I wasn't ready for what I saw next. The camera rested on a face. The face was bone white, and the teeth were visible. The face had no lips. It had no nose, just a skull spot where there should have been. The eyes were like black holes, absorbing all light that seemed to enter them. It was hideously terrifying as the face started cracking as it smiled devilishly. Then the cracks widened. The skull caved in on top, revealing a golden crown with a language that was indecipherable inscribed on it. Yellow tendrils shot out of the eyes without warning, and red light covered the frame. Black tar poured out of the cracks and spaces between the teeth and nose cavity. The tendrils grabbed the jaw and forced it to open, and the tar flowed out like a waterfall, and more tendrils came out, and I saw 2 red glows like eyes within the tar. The voice came as a low, resonant voice, and a terrifying screech at the same time, with many different tones, as if you laid many voices over each other. I go by many names. You can call me the Yellow King, the Unspeakable, the Father of Truth, the Creator of Insanity, or my birth name, Ha. I blacked out. I woke up here. The file is ready to upload to various different places. I wish this on no one, even my worst enemy. But it hurts. I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry. So sorry. This is a warning. Never watch shallnotbenamed.exe. For the love of God or whatever there is. Never watch it. Again, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. File designated shallnotbenamed.exe has been uploaded.